D. Watkins with SalonTV, and today I'll be joined by Juan Vidal, author of Rap Dad, a story of family and a subculture that shaped a generation. How you doing?
Doing great, man.
Thank you so much for coming in.
My pleasure.
First of all, congratulations on the book.
Thank you.
I thought it was amazing. I think the people out there are going to love it. My first question is, why now? Why did you want to put this out now?
I think with hip-hop being the force that it is, I mean, it's been a very dominant culture for a very long time, but now we're in this period where, you know, practitioners, MCs, producers, and people that work in the hip-hop industry are becoming family members, you know, becoming family leaders, you know, fathers, mothers, and stuff, and it's like the age of the people that are doing it now, as far as like the older heads, are about as old as the culture itself. And so these are people that are having kids now, and they're raising families, and they're having kids, and a lot of it is informed by hip hop culture, and there's a lot of talk these days about, you know, telling diverse stories and stuff. So I wanted to tell a story of a generation of rap parents, you know, mothers, fathers, people who are, you know, in their early to mid 30s, early 40s, that are having kids and having families, and viewing a lot of this through the lens of hip hop and the way they raise their children, the way they go about their lives in the world.
It's so poetic. You can tell that, you know, that you're a musician, like by how it was written. I would like for you to read like a passage to give people like a taste of what they should be getting into.
Sure, absolutely.
It's a great book. You guys are gonna like it a lot.
This is from chapter 1 of Rap Dad. The 80s made us. They also saw the ascent of crack, neo-expressionism, and what would become the soundtrack to our lives, hip-hop. We were awed by the pedestaled beings on the tube, the deaf poets and their flawless fits, and the jerseyed watercolor figures leaping high as the sun, MCs, ball players, the kung fu man whose family never called him Bruce but Little Phoenix. Everything they did we tried, eager for someone to emulate. We were the fatherless, searching for our footing, steady on the hunt for a narrative. Our mothers carried what seemed like the weight of the world on their backs. They were scrappy, selfless. They loved hard and worked their fingers to the pink. But the void we felt was inescapable. Then it hit us like something furious blazed in from afar. This thing with its beauty, its built-in contradiction. It was loud and savage and free, like us. We were drawn to hip-hop's magnetic pull, transfixed by its starts and stops. Like the Spanish and Patois and Creole of our homes, it became a part of us. It carried the same force as our mother tongues, only it wasn't in the language of our mothers, so they couldn't teach it or take it away. They damn sure tried. At Silver Lake's middle, it was our strut, how we cracked jokes. We invoked KRS and the Jungle Brothers, and in '92, as a nod to Rakim, Gino got Don't Sweat the Technique etched in his fade. We lost it, and that Chico was king for the whole quarter. In those days, many of us came to see our fathers as ghosts, apparitions who would appear one moment and be gone the next. They were in love, then they weren't. They played at life. They seldom prospered and never mastered the minutes. There was only that, the days swooping past with the wind in their hair. Over and over they broke our hearts. But we the children ate our fill and grew. Some of us went to war, some to university, others nowhere fast. We all aged and many became husbands, some fathers. Soon there were lawyers, therapists, preachers, tons of figuring and psychoanalysis, a lot of cheating and come mierda, regrets, fractured family structures, everyone trying to manage, never having learned how to properly navigate it all. We were never taught the way of stand-up cats that handled theirs. We had to dig deep, and in time, some of those skills came, like the night. Night always came, and that was the truest thing. Right and left, we saw other grown-up kids who were left to chance, the faint memories of distracted fathers. This is the story of us.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. If you just tuned in, I'm here with Juan Vidal. We're talking about his new book, Rap Dad. Really dope cover, really, really amazing story. You guys should definitely go pick it up. So while working on this book, you found your long-lost sister. I just read that literally like last night. How'd that happen?
So I found out when I was about 16 years old, when I was visiting my father in Colombia, that I had a half-sister. My parents by then were divorced, and my father had remarried, and I went to go visit him one summer. And it was during my time there that he basically broke the news to me that I had a half-sister. And it was joy, but it was mixed with just anger and stuff, because there was no way for me to find her. He didn't know where she was, and I always wanted a sister.
How many years are you guys apart?
I was 16. She was about 3 at the time that I found out.
Okay.
So I tried to find her for a lot of years. Obviously, this was like in '97, so there was no social media, there was no Twitter. You can't put the word out. And
not even a MySpace.
Yeah, exactly. No, none of that. So no one's trying to help you find her. He didn't know where they were. her and her mother. So it was just a long process of me trying to find her and trying to tie loose ends. And for a lot of years, I just couldn't do it. And I came to realize that I would have to go about my life as if I didn't have one, because I thought she was just somewhere in Colombia, which is where our parents are from, and I would never find her. But during the process of writing this book and asking my mom a lot of questions and digging deep into some of the less flattering aspects of our history and just poking and prodding and trying to, tie all these loose ends that I had, my mom was like, we have to find your sister. So she played detective like any Latin mom. She put her detective hat on and went out and after a while, it took her a while, but she started to kind of just connect the dots on people's faces and their Facebook profiles and all that stuff. And finally she found my sister's mom, my dad's second wife, and she sent her a message. It took a long time for her to respond, but finally she did. And long story short, we were able to connect that way, and that was just a few months ago. So
how's your relationship now?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, we talk all the time, and pretty much on a daily basis, just texting and stuff. And had I not written this book and dove into this, I don't know that I would have been able to find her.
You get real personal in this book, talking about your family and things that you've been through. Was that difficult?
Yes.
Because you don't seem like the type of guy who just walks around and gives his business to everyone.
Yeah, no, I mean, and there's a responsibility when you're writing memoir and autobiography to tell a complete story that has a narrative arc, but it has to be a complete story. And so you have to dig into those things that are painful, that you don't necessarily want to revisit, but because you want to be responsible to the reader and not leave certain things out that are important to telling your entire story, you have to tell those things. So I had to get personal. I had to flesh out anger and frustration, and I say it's kind of like, and you've written books, so it's almost like giving birth in a way. Not that I know what giving birth is like or how painful that is, but that's the closest thing that I can say as far as trying to resurrect something that was not theirs, to tell that story and get it out of you.
Yeah. So I'm saying this, and I'm not trying to be funny. The hardest part for me was trying to find people to say negative things about me. It was so difficult.
Yeah.
Yes. It was so difficult. They were like, I was like, it's easy for me to write down these great things that I've done, even while I was doing some of the most horrible things in the world. But what's the bad stuff? And, former crack kids are like, you are amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But you feel like, you feel like anyone's gonna be upset with some of the things you wrote?
No, absolutely not, because I took it upon myself to share certain aspects of the book with people that I write about. Some people that I couldn't find, but there's not anything in there bad about anybody. This is, when you write memoir again, there's a responsibility that you have, but it's not to paint anybody in a negative light.
Right.
Like, that's not the goal.
Right.
The idea is to tell a real and raw story. And so, no, there's not anything that's hard about anybody that hasn't already been said about them, such as my father.
I think I never set out to paint a person in a negative light, but I do think sometimes people just get caught in the crossfire. Yeah. And whenever I had conversations with them about the project, I've been known to say things like, well, you've had a long life. You've had plenty of opportunities to be a better person.
Yeah, exactly.
It is what it is. But no, it's a beautiful process, and I think you handled it really well. What are some of the biggest misconceptions out there about minority fathers in America?
I think that...
Because you go over a lot in this book.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important. Like, if you turn on Fox News, for example, and you see constant stories about black fathers and Latino fathers, and that they're not there, and they're
you go to Fox News for stories about black fathers?
Yeah, you can't escape it. You can't escape it. And especially in the area that we're living now, with immigration being such a hot button issue, and people saying Mexican are rapists and Latinos are this and that, and they're not telling a complete story. They're feeding their audience something that their audience wants to believe and has been conditioned to believe and to regurgitate themselves. So it's important for people to be telling diverse stories and be giving a different camera lens, and shedding light on some of these things, and setting aside those biases and those false realities and proving them wrong. Because the majority of my friends are mothers and fathers, in their early to late 30s, and they're all incredible parents. So while these stories are coming out, it's like, well, that's not what I'm seeing in my neighborhood. That's not what I'm seeing in the lives of my friends and the people that I'm in contact with. So if we're not telling these stories, there's certain aspects of America that are going to continue to believe what they've been conditioned to believe.
And then there's the role that the system has played over the years as well. Let's forget the fact how easy it is to be incarcerated or not be hired as a minority, but how you can't live in the projects or get any type of government assistance if there was a dad in the house. So that was going on a lot in the 80s and the 90s, and that alone, just the need to be able to survive and function, broke a lot of families up and created situations where people grew up without dads.
Yeah, absolutely. And my mom, she had a lot of jobs when I was growing up. You know, she had a lot of side hustles. She's cleaning houses. She's at night sewing things just to make ends meet. And, like the system helped to a certain extent, but it was never enough for a single mom with 3 kids to be able to make ends meet. So, and a lot of times the system does work against people that struggle. And it's a tragedy,
So when dads leave home, right, for whatever reason, do you think that it's okay for the hurt child to be able to forgive this person, or you think they should forever hold a grudge? Or do you think it's like a case-by-case situation?
Yeah, I think it's a case-by-case thing. I mean, there's no way to answer that with a blanket statement necessarily. It all comes down to the person. Like, if you can open up your heart to forgiveness, I think that's a powerful thing. And it's funny, I actually have spoken to my father. Like, we connected several months ago, earlier this year, and I've had conversations with him about some of the things that I've written about. And yeah, I do forgive him, because I think that he was always a good man in his heart, but he got caught up in things that took over. You know what I mean? Like drugs and womanizing. It's like he was a product of his brothers and his father, and it's like this cycle that continues. So I don't hold a grudge against him necessarily. There might be other people in my family that do. I'm certain that there are people in my family that do, because they see some of the negative things that my brothers and I went through.
But it's more healthy for you to forgive.
Yeah, it's more healthy for me to forgive, and like to hold on to that stuff is like a prison, imprisoning yourself, and I did have that anger, especially in my teenage years, and I write a lot about that in the book, a lot of the stuff that I got caught up in because of that angst and because of that, the anger that I had. But hip-hop showed me that it gave me a confidence in a lot of ways, when I saw people like Fat Joe and Cypress Hill, Be Real, like people like that I was like, wow, like I could relate to a lot of your experience, and like there's a confidence that you have, and like I was drawn to that early on. Right.
As I asked the question because I think about the song with Jay-Z and Beanie Siegel, and I know they had like 2 versions, but it's like the anger they had towards their fathers and the way they dealt with it was completely different. Whereas Beans is all emotional and crying, and then Jay-Z is like, "Mommy's doing better now.
Yeah, exactly.
We got 6s now."
Yeah, and it's like there's no right or wrong, right? It's just 2 sides of kind of like the same coin, and it's a different perspective, and it's different stages of life.
Yeah. What would you say to like a father who left home and doesn't really have is struggling with the confidence to try to go back and rebuild that relationship?
Yeah.
Whether he's in jail, whether maybe the mom moved the kid to another state and he can't get there, or maybe the mom is just trying not to let him see the kid at all, or for whatever reason, but they want to reconnect. What would you say to them?
I mean, it's tough because there's a lot of people that fathers that I've spoken to or that I know of, that because they haven't been in their kids' lives for so many years, they figure it's too late, and it's like, 20 years have gone by. There's too much pain there, and they're not going to forgive me. They're not going to let me in their life, so forget it, and they just forget about it. But, and again, I guess it differs from on a case-by-case basis, but I don't think it's ever too late to apologize for your wrongdoings and at least extend, that olive branch. And if the child wants to kind of mend that relationship, that's up to them. But again, there's no right or wrong. I think it's really just depends on the people that are involved.
Yeah, earlier you said you compare writing this book to having your first baby. And I think I truly think this is a great project, and great projects change people. Yeah. You're not the same person you were when you started this. Yeah. You've dipped into a whole different space. So tell us how this project changed you.
Yeah, I've actually been thinking a lot about that lately, because early on in the process, I was, as a writer and critic, I'm used to writing 1,000 words, 1,500 words, 2,000, 3,000 words, maybe, and interviewing artists and entertainers and writing essays and stuff. So to take on a book-length project was a very intimidating thing to begin with, and I'm sure you can relate to that to some extent too, having written more than one book, but it was a very intimidating process at first. And one of the things, I learned a lot of things about myself in writing this book, obviously revisiting things in my life, but also that fear is a great motivator for me. And I think that it's important for artists and creatives to do things that make you scared. Taking this on scared the hell out of me, because I was like, wow, how am I going to write 70,000 words? I sold the book and it was like, oh wow, I actually have to do this, right. So it was kind of terrifying, but it was a marathon, it was like little by little. So I learned that I could write a book, for one, because it'd been something that I'd wanted to do for so long. So that's one thing that sticks out as far as what I learned about myself is do something that terrifies you and see how you come out a different person on the other end.
And how do you feel about just giving these messages? You interviewed a lot of people, you talked to a lot of people. How do you feel like their responses or how they responded towards you putting out this project affected them? Do you feel
It's crazy because in interviewing people, I interviewed some of my heroes, I spent some days with RZA. I talked to my favorite rapper, who's Fonte, from Little Brother and Foreign Exchange, Ninth Wonder, and Shea Serrano, and Carly Hustle, and some of these different people who have had some similar experiences. And for the people, these were all parents. And the ones that were men that I spoke to, they opened up about things that I did not expect them to open up about, Fontaine in particular, he really opened up about his father actually passed away, I believe last year, and he talks a lot about that in his latest album. But when I had talked to him, his father hadn't passed away yet, so he was telling me about him reconnecting with his father after so many years of them having kind of a strained relationship. So to have some of my heroes and people that I've looked up to for 10 years plus open up about their own lives with me really made me realize, wow, these are stories that are not really being told, the stories of rap moms and dads. And you see articles and news stories about fatherhood and stuff around Father's Day,
I guess
right?
because the genre is so young.
Exactly. That's
NBA YoungBoy is changing the narrative.
Yeah, exactly. So it made me realize that these are the type of stories that people want to read about. And the book came out 2 days ago, and I've been getting so many messages from people saying, "Wow, somebody wrote my memoir."
Right.
And it's for people to take ownership. That is a powerful thing, because even though this is my story, I believe that anybody can see themselves in this. Even if you don't like hip hop, even if you're a white lady from Arkansas or something, there's something that you can find in it. But if you do relate to this on a personal level, then you own it and engage with it in a different way, and that's a beautiful thing to me.
That's what it's about. What's next for you?
I'm thinking of a second book. I'm still trying to figure that process out.
You know you can do it now.
Yes, now I know I can. Hopefully I can do it again, and it's not that sophomore Desmore jinx that you didn't fall into, because your second book was amazing. But
they came out around the same time.
Exactly, because you're so prolific. You had all these words. I can't write that many words in such a short time.
No, but this is amazing. I want you to tell everyone where they can follow you and where they can purchase Rap Dad.
Yeah, man.
Right
you
into
can get
the,
Rap Dad.
right into the camera.
You can get this book, Rap Dad. My name is D. Watkins, and you can buy it at your local bookstore. Hit up independent bookstores, hit up Barnes & Noble, hit up Amazon, support independent bookstores for sure. But I'm on Twitter at It's Juan Love, ITS Juan Love. And man, I'm excited.
The book is amazing. Congratulations.
Appreciate it, brother. Thank you for having me.